The great civil rights leader Martin Luther King once said, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice." Now, last week, I sat with Marianne Williamson, who ran for president of the United States, and I asked her that very question. Does the arc of the moral universe bend towards justice? Well, on September 14th, a 22-year-old woman from Kurdistan, which is a province in the north of Iran, named Masa Amini, traveled to Tehran, and she exited a subway station with her brother and was subsequently detained by the morality police for supposedly improperly wearing her hijab, even though there are photos that show her wearing the hijab. Nevertheless, she was taken to a detention center, which is notorious for re educating women on the proper dress code. And at that detention center, she was beaten, she went into a coma, and eventually died. And this inspired protests all across Iran in 95 cities, with women engaging in the most unbelievable inspirational acts of removing their hijabs and cutting their hair, and in some cases, shaving their heads in the face of great threat and the most heavy handed, cruel, odious authoritative regime. They're risking everything. Now, we generally think of the plight of women in Muslim countries like Iran as always being repressed. But before 1979, when there was the Islamic Revolution in Iran and the supreme leader Ayatollah Khomeini took charge and started to impose this repressive regime, women actually enjoyed considerable freedoms, and the society was much more liberal. And this, in some ways, really violates our instincts or our intuition. We sense that we inch down the arc of the moral universe towards the expansion of greater rights. But this isn't always true. Now, we look at our own country and we have this marvelous mission, this marvelous mythology um, written into our founding documents that all men are created equal, endowed by the Creator with certain inalienable rights, among them life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But we know that just because that was written on a parchment does not mean that those freedoms came for free, that our human condition didn't always align with our highest principles, but slowly over time we self-corrected. Slavery became abolition. The imposition of Jim Crow became the civil rights movement. The denial of the franchise to women became the women's suffragette movement. The denial of gay rights eventually became the rights for gays to marry. So we instinctively think that rights expand, that slowly we greater align the human condition with our highest principles. But if we look around in the last 5 years, what we've experienced in this country is a rescinding of rights. The Voting Rights Act of 1964 has been gutted, and particularly minorities are having their voting rights rescinded or limited, obviously in the wake of the Supreme Court Dobbs decision earlier this summer. The rights for women to control their own bodies, those rights have diminished and been rescinded. So that brings us back to this question that I asked Marianne. Does the arc of the moral universe bend towards justice? And she says, well, it depends. Well, it depends on what? It depends on our conviction. Because all those self-corrections that I mentioned, from slavery to abolition, from Jim Crow to civil rights, from the denial of gay rights to gay marriage, from the denial of the franchise to women's suffrage, all of those required tremendous conviction. The ability of engaged and motivated citizens to fight principled battles to bring our human condition into greater alignment with our highest principles. And the question is, will our generation meet that same calling? Do we have that courage? Or are we just content with sort of pressing like on a social media post or posting something performative? Do we have the courage and the conviction to move us down the arc of the moral universe towards justice? This is the issue that I explore with my friend Marianne Williamson.